We learned the unfortunate news on Friday that LaMelo Ball is out for the rest of the season. What does that mean for the rest of this season? What does that mean for LaMelo Ball's career, especially in a Hornets uniform? We have also the Sicko Satchel to get to all today. Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. He's also hosting another podcast, Locked On NBA, with Hayes and Matt Moore. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. on Sports Radio 92.7 FM. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time?
Game Time.
Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Always appreciate Game Time. You also have a Locked On Hornets newsletter. It's a new one, introducing the Locked On Hornets daily newsletter. One stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now, LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. Well, the news came in Friday. Real good old-fashioned Friday news dump. LaMelo Ball to undergo season-ending procedures. Shams Charania of ESPN had it first. Said he'll miss the rest of the season as he undergoes two minor procedures to address right ankle and wrist issues. Ball will undergo arthroscopic surgery on the right ankle impingement, and he'll have a procedure on his right wrist, according to the Hornets. Didn't get exactly what the procedure would be, but we know what it is for the ankle. He's going to have one period on the wrist, and he'll be out for the rest of the way. Only 8 games left to go. At the time of the report, I think there were 9 games exactly, maybe 10 left to go the rest of the way. You know, I saw somebody on Twitter, apologies for not remembering who the Twitter handle was, but I think it was Ben. I think it was like Ben something, Charlotte Hornets community guy. And he said, you know, it just hit me. I might have just watched LaMelo Ball's last game as a Charlotte Hornet. And I don't know what the probability of that is, if that's a word we should be using, but it is absolutely a possibility that that is true. And if so, buddy, that is going to be a hell of a podcast to do, to look back at one of the more exciting yet frustrating 5-year stretches that any player has ever had in a Hornets uniform. And pretty high bar to clear, honestly. You know who else played 5 years with the Hornets? Larry Johnson, before he moved on. I think you could also characterize as one of the best, most exciting, I think higher team highs, but then also a sour ending. Maybe we're headed that way too. I don't know, but it is a possibility. And it's because the guy just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and we've not been allowed to watch him and all of his magic as much as we wanted, because, Doug, he just isn't out there on the court enough. And the last season, maybe, that he'll ever play with the Hornets ends the same way that we've experienced most of it anyway.
David Walker for Every Hornets Box Score did the recap of the Pelicans game, and in that did some writing on LaMelo Ball. And I agree with him on one thing, which is like, is there such a thing as minor surgery on 2 body parts? Like, surgery is surgery, right? I mean, I guess, you know, if the recovery times, maybe that's what they're saying, right? The recovery times, he's going to be healthy for the offseason. So it's not a surgery in which, you know, he's going to miss, 6 months or something like that. These are repair type surgeries, but it's not a minor deal that he's having these surgeries. We went through this a little bit with Kemba Walker and his knee issues, where it seemed like every offseason for several seasons straight before the Hornets eventually moved on from him, he was getting something taken out of his knee or put in his knee, or, you know, there was just something going on with him. And that eventually led, I think, to some of the loss of motion, loss of explosion that Kemba Walker had later in his career. So I think it's fair to ask, like, what are the long-term impacts of repeated surgeries to your ankles on a player that really didn't come into the league with like a lot of speed, needs a lot of movement, to kind of get to the rim. think those are all fair questions that the Hornets are going to have to ask. And questions, you bring up Larry Johnson. Those were questions that the organization was asking about Larry Johnson, his long-term health. Because Larry Johnson, before they traded him, he would have gone into that next season being super healthy and super effective. He was when he went to the Knicks. I mean, he helped that team in their playoff run. And so he still had gas in the tank. But it was a question of, do we give him another massive deal knowing that the long-term prospects aren't great? With LaMelo, it's a different situation because the deal has already been given and there are plenty of years left, and you would be having to convince another team to take that deal on. But yeah, just a huge, huge disappointment because when he is on it, he is so impactful to winning basketball here in Charlotte. And it's both a shame that he hasn't been able to stay healthy and that the team, when he is healthy, it's like also can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
So both sides of that coin are terrible.
Yeah, it's a real possibility. It's a real issue with the injuries that he's suffered. It's a real possibility that he's not back next season, or that this, not even the catalyst, because, I mean, this has been something that has been mounting with all these injuries. It's just maybe this is the last straw, close to the last straw, so to speak, and maybe LaMelo wants out. I could see that as well, understandably, from both sides. Maybe it would be better to move on. But if we want to save that show for another day and just focus on what happened this season, what happened this season is that LaMelo now will go down in his 5th year in the NBA, having only played 47 games. And despite having only played 47 games, it's actually the most amount of games that he suited up for in the last 3 years. He played 22 games, 2023-24. He appeared in 36 games in 2022 and 2023. He actually suffered his wrist injury, Doug, in the second healthiest season that he's ever posted, which was his rookie season. That's when he suffered his wrist injury 5 years ago. And then when he came back, he kept grabbing at it and twisting it, and it clearly bothered him. He still does to this day. If you watch the Hornets, you still see him grab at that wrist, and you see ankle impingement. For those that don't know, it's pain. He's actually experiencing some ankle pain, and he's undergoing what they describe as a minor procedure to hopefully fix that for whatever team he plays for. But hopefully a healthy LaMelo is playing here in Charlotte, in my opinion. But this is what LaMelo did. He started off crazy hot. He looked like he was destined for an all-star team. At the beginning of the season, he was putting up numbers that would suggest he should be a top 15 player at the end of this season, which would bring you to an all-NBA level. He was playing like a third-team all-NBA level guard. Gets injured, also starts getting cold. Also, his teammates start dropping like flies, where you only have Trey Mann play a handful of games. Brandon Miller gets hurt in the first 2 minutes of action in the season. He gives us this fun dunk, and then he's out immediately. Remember, even Miles Bridges, the Iron Man that he is, Miles Bridges missed time at the beginning of the season with injury. And so even when LaMelo was healthy, there wasn't a lot of time that he played with the starting lineup that he was supposed to. Eventually that would change, but that never happened nearly as much as we wanted. Mark Williams, we all know about his injuries, keeping him out at the beginning of the season. So he played really well and then started to tail off. And Doug, outside of maybe 2 performances here, after the All-Star break, it's been a lot of cold stuff from LaMelo, and his season comes to an end.
And I think because of the injuries at the beginning of the season, he started to press a lot. The numbers, like the raw numbers look good, but you could already see some of the beginnings of the efficiency issues and shot selection issues that he would really battle this entire season. And I think you can hang some of that on the fact that he did not have a lot of his weapons early on and did not develop a rhythm. When some of those guys started to come back, that's when I think you saw a version of LaMelo that would have been the version of LaMelo that hopefully the Hornets would have had in a hypothetical winning season. But I think my major takeaway from LaMelo is that he really did try to improve on areas that everyone agreed that he needed to improve on. I thought early on he was attacking the basket a lot, trying to get fouled. The referees were not necessarily cooperating with him, but he was looking for the contact. He was not afraid of that ankle at all. He was ready to play on it. And then defensively, he was going all out for his new coach in Charles Lee, who was demanding defense. That was a big question. How was he going to respond to that? Well, he responded by giving effort. The problem was that in that effort came a lot of fouls because he wanted to play defense and obviously still needs to improve on that end just from a skill perspective, not an effort perspective. And he was getting fouled and taking himself out of games that the Hornets honestly needed him to be in late. And then I think also he underperformed on some key metrics that would suggest that he would be the number one offensive option on a team. Metrics like his 2-point percentage. And as the season went on, his drives per game dropped off precipitously. He stopped looking for that contact. He stopped trying to draw those fouls, maybe because he wasn't getting them, but he was pulling up for a lot more difficult threes that unfortunately just did not go in. Like his 3-point percentage is down, his 2-point percentage is down, and his shot selection was bad. And so all of these things that you look for when you go, that's a number one guy, he underperformed on those this season. That's the bottom line.
Well, especially in the second half, right? Because especially as the season went on, those numbers started to tail off, as you mentioned. We can comb through those a little bit more. We'll finish our thoughts on LaMelo's end to the season coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
Some more stats to get to for sure. We also have another mock draft, day 6 of 61 total. We are slowly getting through them. We're getting through them, though. And then we'll maybe dabble in the Sicko Satchel. We'll tell you how to watch the Hornets the rest of the way as well. That's still to come, LOH. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time?
Game time?
There's nothing like watching basketball live. The energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers on the hardwood, maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. Bryce Young, we see you out there at the Spectrum Center every now and then. If you want to catch a game in person, Game Time, it makes getting tickets easier than ever. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out all the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets anymore. You have easy ticket shopping options. You can just check the Game Time app, and there are amazing deals on the huge matchups coming up. Plus, you get the super deals, where Game Time Picks even highlights super deals, giving you the best bang for your buck, and it allows you to have some peace of mind. With seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and a lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, then create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time?
Game time.
More Locked On Hornets app. LaMelo stats at the end of the season, they will finish as this, Doug. You will see him having recorded the highest points per game total of his career, 25.2. That dropped significantly for those that were paying attention in the first half. He was there around 30. He was above 30 early on, and that dropped all the way down to 25 points per game, but still recorded the highest PPG of his career, 23.9 the season before, 23.3 the year prior to that. And then his All-Star season, it was actually 20 points per game, but the efficiency was up. He was more of a facilitator and had better talent around him as they finished above 500. The other numbers he posted a career low in three-point shooting percentage at 33.9, so right at 34%. He shot 40.5% overall from the field. That's also a career low. He shot 47.8% from two. That actually isn't a career low, but it's right there smack dab in the middle. And then the free throw attempts. We saw him improve, and it at least was a nice sign that the improvement he made in 2023 and 24, Doug, he actually still kept that up on higher volume, even if that tailed off as the end of the season came, right? He actually went to the foul line about 5 times per game. That was a little above what he did in 23-24, but at least it was on higher volume, 47 games this past year, 22 the previous season I'm talking about. So those are the numbers to look at. I will say this. You mentioned the drives, right? We wanted LaMelo to get to the rack more, at least get there, and then the next step is to finish at a higher clip once you get there, which is also important, but at least get to the rack way more than what you had been doing earlier in your career. Actually, Basketball Index tweeted out that LaMelo is number 9 in top 10 drives per 75 possessions. He's actually 8th if you just go with the high usage ball handlers out there in the NBA. So it's TJ McConnell, number 1, not a high usage guy. But then LaMelo comes in 8, right behind SGA, Zion, Ja, Jalen Brunson, Cade Cunningham, Cam Thomas, Darius Garland. So LaMelo still, he hung on, but you're right, like he fell back as the season went on. But he did hang on to a top 10 spot, according to the Basketball Index.
Yeah, but if you look at that, the interesting thing about drives, any kind of drive statistic is that even if you're top 10, like the gulf, and we talked about this a little bit early in the season when we were doing the stat draft and like what it would take for LaMelo Ball to like join the elite guards in the NBA, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like some of these other guys, Luka. Guards, forwards, just MVP level players. The gulf between them and which there's only 5-6 of those guys in the league. The gulf between them and everybody else is so significant. So even though, he's a top 10 player, I would be interested to look at that list and see where that gulf ends up being between sort of the top 3 or 4 players and LaMelo.
Well, and even so, that's not even to suggest that he is with the right, because you have the elite of the elite there. I mean, you have SGA, you have Zion, you have Ja. I mean, already those are just constant rim pressure dudes, just going into the teeth of the defense. That's their game, right? That's how they eat. That's what they do. And LaMelo, not so much. You want that to be a part of his game, but also the 3-point shooting, it's better than everybody's there. And SGA is better, but anyways, yeah, you see the rim pressure here. Only 40% of his field goals were at the rim this season. That went way down. Like that's the trend, right? You've heard both of us talk about that. It's that the numbers tailed off. Really, I mean, you're probably splitting this season in half. If he played 47 games, you're probably splitting it right there at the 23 game mark, if you will. You're seeing the first 23 games. That's what it feels like, right? The first 23 games of LaMelo's season, you saw all the improvement that you were talking about. And then the last 23 games, really it feels post All-Star break especially. You have the Lakers game where he was excellent. And then after that, you're talking about 2 good games in a month and a half, 2 months worth of time.
Yeah, I think this season, you could look at it one of 2 ways. You could say, well, this season was super chaotic, because even if you look at the beginning of the season with the injury to Brandon Miller, even when he comes back from that first injury, he was in a pretty terrible shooting slump. And so much of the offensive responsibility was on LaMelo Ball. And so, you could excuse some of the issues that had him pressing, that had Charles Lee bench him in that game. That was like the 14th or 15th game of the season against the Nets. He gets benched, but he was such an impact player in the fourth quarter and crunch time early in the season. So you could say, look, man, there's so much chaos, it's impossible to evaluate. Or you could say, look, you have to evaluate it because this is year 5. You've got to figure out who can be the number. Is there a number 1 player on this team? Do you have to go out and find that? Is that coming up in the draft? How do you approach that? Because if LaMelo is a number 1 guy, then that's going to leak down into all of your other decisions when you're roster building. And I think we figured out this season that LaMelo is a special player, but I'm not, any idea that we had of him being like an MVP, maybe even an all-NBA player, I'm just not sure that's reality. I think this was a come to terms with who LaMelo is and who he isn't type of year for him. And that's not hating on LaMelo. That's just a reality check of what we've seen and the limited, and honestly, the limit of what we've seen because he hasn't been healthy. I mean, I am worried about these surgeries because, when I saw him out with ankle soreness and out with wrist soreness, I wondered, and this was sort of littered throughout the season, and I wondered, is this the team knows that they're not going anywhere this season? You've got to find reasons to get guys rest. You don't want to come up against the player participation policy. It's like, no, that wasn't the case. Like his wrist was actually sore. His ankle was actually sore. They've got to go and fix that. And this is the thing. There's no guarantee that they're going to fix that. It's not as if minor surgery, he's going to come back 100% healthy. He's been doing this thing with his wrist since he hurt it. He's still spraining his ankle. He sprained his ankle this season against the Lakers, backpedaling and stepping on Jared Vanderbilt's foot. Like it's still, and LaMelo, to his credit, has tried to do things to alleviate it. He has, worn things that he wasn't wearing previously to
Did
try
you
to
not want to
alleviate
say
the
ankle
ankle
braces?
issues.
Did you want to not say ankle braces?
I don't know what they are. They don't look like the thing that
Oh.
Steph Curry wears. That's what yeah, you're right. I was
Oh,
careful
okay.
in that because I
Conspiracy.
don't know.
Gotcha.
They're not being very open. They're not doing ESPN profiles about what he's doing. So I don't know, and it's not working because he sprained his ankle again.
I mean, no, okay. It's working because we didn't have the log. This is where we get Josh Green like.
All right,
This is
rub
the
me
Josh
in, rub
Green.
me in, Walker.
I saw the Josh Green eyes, and I needed to stop you because I think they
Josh
actually
Green.
did work. They actually did work in terms of just not allowing him to sit out for months, right? I mean, there was not a season-ending injury in terms of, okay, now you're only going to play 22, right? Like he would come back within a week. The other part of this is how many games could he have played if the Hornets were actively not trying to lose, if they were actively trying to win, if they were drafting somebody in the first round that you knew would help you immediately, if this was a team that didn't see the writing on the wall early and now they are pretty solidly, by the way. We'll get to a standings update, but knock on wood, you can feel pretty good about them finishing with 14% chance, the highest percent chance you can
feel
get
pretty good
to get the number one.
not how I would describe my feelings. It's not a perfect description. It's close. Not a perfect description of how I feel.
Yeah. So the last couple things here for me on LaMelo. Yeah, you have to be worried about the injuries, even for me, who wants LaMelo to be on the team next year and then help facilitate the growth of whatever rookie you have. I've always remained steadfast that, of course, the injuries are concerning. Of course they are. If you look at his injury history, it's every season. We have one season where he played 75 games. That's it. And what you talked about with the wrist injury, with the wrist procedure that we're getting, right? It actually gave confirmation to what everybody was watching with him grabbing the wrist. So now it's not even, which I try to be careful of, this speculation, well, his wrist, it's never going to be the same because he keeps grabbing at it. We can talk about how he keeps grabbing at it, but I also want to remain very careful in that space because I don't know. One, clearly I'm not a doctor, and also I don't know how much it's bothering him. But if you have a surgery on it or a procedure, because there's a difference, I will say there's a difference between a procedure and a surgery. So if you have procedure on it, even still, it gives voice to that. It gives confirmation to it. I don't think LaMelo is the outright number one option on a championship contending team. You can see non-number one options get all NBA appearances all the time. It actually happens frequently. That third team all NBA selection, I think you could see that. So I even think still that ceiling is somewhere in the LaMelo universe. We just can't have these wrist procedures. We can't have these ankle injuries, and we got to have healthy players around him. There's stuff that might be his fault, that might be his body's fault, that is the team's fault, all around him that keep him from realizing his full potential. And it's frustrating as hell, I'm sure, for him, and it's definitely frustrating for us Hornets fans that only want the best for everybody on the Hornets roster, and that includes what has been the best player for the last 4 years at least.
I think I'm going to go get my doctorate first I've got to get a master's degree, but then after that, I think I'm going to get a doctorate in poetry or something easy so that I can come on this show and say I am a doctor.
It would help out.
Because I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being like, well, I can't talk about, is it a procedure or surgery? I can't talk about his long-term projection because I'm not a doctor. I'm going to go get my doctorate just so I can come on the show and say I am a doctor and here's what I think.
No, getting a PhD in poetry would allow you to say all of that. Coming up
Whether
next,
'tis nobler in the mind.
it's an impingement of the scapholunits variety. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
How to watch the Charlotte Hornets the rest of the way. We have a game to recap as well. Actually, some interesting stuff in this Raptors matchup. So stick around. We'll tell you how to watch them. Before we tell you the how-to guide again, this is our third one of the season, Doug. Our third how-to guide.
Yeah.
On how to watch them.
Volume
Okay.
3.
Just, yeah.
That's what I call tanking volume 3.
Yeah. It's true. So, yeah, the Hornets, actually, they've played a couple of games. I know I was trying to reference that at the beginning of the show. With LaMelo having been announced out, there were 10 games left. So they've played 2 over the weekend. They played against Toronto. They lost 108-97. And then they played New Orleans last night. They lost that game 98-94. Now, for a critical standings update, that loss to New Orleans, it matters quite a bit in the capture the flag sweepstakes, because now the Hornets are 2.5 games above the Pelicans for the right to have a 14% chance at having the number 1 overall pick. So it's Utah at 16-59, whom the Hornets play tonight. So Utah is 16-59.
That's great.
Washington is 16-58. The Hornets are 18-56. And then you get to a 2.5 game drop where you reach the Pelicans at 21-54. So the Hornets, the Wizards, and the Jazz, Doug, they all right now have a 14% chance to select number 1 in the NBA draft. And again, with 8 games left, I think it's going to be pretty hard for the Hornets to get out of that top 3 spot.
Oh, it's so fun. There's a reverse tournament happening in the NBA right now with the Hornets losing to Toronto, who's now won 4 games in a row. They're doing this completely wrong. And then they go against New Orleans, who had lost a couple heading into this game. They dispatch the New Orleans Hornets in this uncompetitive tournament. And now, losers of 5 straight, Utah versus the Hornets. It is, I would say, almost the ultimate toilet bowl. I guess Utah Wizards, but the Hornets have already lost 4 games to the Wizards. They have done everything possible, sometimes trying to and sometimes without trying to. They've done everything possible to put themselves into this position. And if they lose to Utah, I don't think it's out of the question that they could improve. It's the language in here. It's all Willy Wonka. It's all Mad Hatter. It's Alice in Wonderland. Up is down, down is up. It's crazy. But they could improve their standing here. It is important. If you move to 2 or 1, it doesn't improve your chance of getting Cooper Flag. But what it does is it improves your chances of not falling very far in the draft. So of getting one of those top 3 picks. So, that's where the Hornets are right now.
I can picture myself being Gene Wilder as the host on the canoe through the tunnel of all sorts of glowing lights where I'm going crazy. That's how I'm hosting the podcast these days, where we're trying to say they could improve to have the worst pick. They're getting better in terms of going after Cooper Flag. So the Pelicans, right? They lose to the Pelicans. It's actually a big deal in the tank sweepstakes. You look at the Pelicans schedule. They have a game against the Clippers, the Lakers, the Bucks, the Nets, the Bucks again, the Heat, and Oklahoma City. So some tough teams there. If you want to compare that to the Hornets have a game against the Jazz tonight, Indiana, Sacramento, Chicago, Memphis, Toronto, and then they finish up on the road against Boston. So probably a more difficult schedule for New Orleans overall.
Impossible to tell because you don't know who's going to play. This is a problem with the NBA. It's why they've got to shorten the schedule and figure out a different incentive or incentive structure for these teams, because these games are ridiculous. Charlotte sat. At least they played Miles Bridges. I don't think they still sat a lot of people, and then New Orleans sort of responded to that by sitting everything that they had. It was a true tank battle here. Miles played well in 3 quarters, which was nice to see, because he's been after becoming one of the hottest players in the NBA, took a rest night and then came back as one of the coldest players in the NBA. He has a 20-point rebound, 75% of a game, because they don't play him in the fourth quarter. They don't really play anyone. The young guys tried to hang in there. Shout out Nick Smith Jr. He hits a big shot, but he just struggles on defense to keep anyone away from the rim. Just kind of the story of his season. He didn't even have to watch Jose Alvarado tape, as I've been advocating for him to do. He just got it. He got a front row seat to Alvarado, who played really well in beating the Hornets.
Yeah. So the Pelicans, they win. Don't know. And plus, if Zion's going to play, now I know he's been out the last couple of games, but if Zion, even does come back, then that's immediately going to help the Pelicans win, and you still have some separation between them. It looks like the Hornets are going to get that number 1 overall pick, or not that. It looks like they're going to have the best shots.
Bold take.
Rigged? Do I know something that you don't know? LeBron James, Adam Silver style? There's a good shot that they're going to have a 14% chance at the number 1 overall pick. So we'll see how it all unfolds, but they do play the Jazz tonight. They did play the Raptors too. This game was more interesting, in my opinion, than the Pelicans game was, because you did have some guys suit up. Not many, but Miles suited up. And Doug, I got to tell you, man, you've been asking for it. Mark Williams, did you see his Dirk moments?
I did.
Did you see the Nowitzki moments? I mean, could those fadeaway jumpers be any splashier? I had to wipe my screen off from some of the water that came off of those shots. Yeah, buddy. It's happening, baby. Mark Nowitzki.
Charles Lee said at the end of the game, player development at its finest. And I don't know how much tongue was in the cheek there. I'm not sure, because, I mean, both of those, didn't they come like sort of into shot clock?
Yes,
he had to throw him up there. It wasn't like they were setting him up to do that. Obviously, he's putting in some work. And I think,
which is documented real quickly. That's documented just because, like, seeing it in practice, he shoots quite a bit. It's just we've seen it literally one time in a game. Yeah. So it was nice to see that here.
So, like, preseason, if he's still around the team, we need to see it. We need to set him up for more of these opportunities.
Yes.
And do some at the end of the season here if he's going to continue to play.
Yes,
like,
please.
What are we doing?
Because we've seen it before. That's the frustrating part, because we've seen it before. And then it's just like, nope, you don't get to do it, except for these 2 times where you're excuse me. Let me do that again.
Whoa! Beep! I don't have a beep button. Oh, my
FCC.
Goodness. What is this season doing to us?
You got to get me out of the radio business now, man. You got to get me out of radio. I got too comfortable on a podcast. Too comfortable on a pod. Where you're freaking wet right from the mid-range jumper, and I want Mark Williams to continue to take those shots. It's the first time we ever dropped an F-bomb on this show, I think. I apologize for the kids listening at home. Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I got passionate about a Mark Williams jumper. That's what happened with me. I got passionate about a Mark Williams jumper, and then went a little too hot with it.
And it got me out of my seat, which is rare, and I'm glad that I chose to wear pants today. That would have been a double.
Yeah.
Would have been a double foul on this podcast. All right, real quick, I got to get to my mock draft. I promised. This is day 6 of 61 mock drafts leading up to the NBA draft. Let's go ahead and sim the lottery. It's been a depressing show. So, Tankathon, sim lottery, I need you right now. The past couple of times we've done this, the Hornets have dropped multiple spots. I can't have it happen again. Here we go.
Yeah.
Beep, boop, 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 beep, boop, boop. Oh, the Hornets moved up 1 spot to 2 in position to take Dylan Harper from Rutgers, who I think we've been calling a point guard, and like, can he play with LaMelo? But the more I look into this guy, like, he's not doing a ton of passing. Like, that's sort of one of the knocks on Harper, is that his assist percentage a little bit low. And you've got the Hornets here with an opportunity to take a guy who, could slot into like a smaller shooting guard position, though it would mean moving Brandon Miller to 3, which I'm not in love with. But
yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about Dylan Harper's game. I think this is where you pretty solidly know who number 2 is. Now, dare I fall into the Scoot Henderson trap of it all again?
I'll say just really quickly, Gary Parrish. Here's my mock draft. Gary Parrish updated 3/28/25. So this is a fresh Parrish here. Has Cooper Flagg going number 1, Ace Bailey going number 2 to the Jazz. Now, I'm not sure if that's Jazz specific that they wouldn't want Dylan Harper, but it is a rare mock draft that I see Ace Bailey going number 2 overall over his teammate Dylan Harper.
Yes, it's rare, and I can see why, because, I mean, you look at the efficiency for Dylan Harper, it's pretty impressive. It maybe the 3-point shooting efficiency, it's fine, but he gets to the foul line a lot. You look at some of these games, the assist numbers can be there. He had 8 in his last game of the season against USC. He posted a 9-assist game against USC again earlier on in the year. had a 12 assist game earlier on. So I think the passing, it's there. You could see some of the good shooting numbers. Was 4 of 8 against USC, against Washington from 3-point range, was 3 of 5 against Purdue. There's a lot of losing going on with that Rutgers team, which is surprising, of course, given that they have 2 top 5 picks. Yeah, so the overall shooting numbers for Dylan Harper aren't great. 33.3% on the season, average 19 a game. So those are some of the stats just to familiarize you guys with him. But does get to the foul line, can get to the paint. Overall, shot pretty well from the field, shot well on twos. So that would be in contrast to what you get from LaMelo, where LaMelo is the shooter. Dylan Harper is the guy that gives you paint touches and gets fouled. That's something I would welcome in a Hornets uniform, no doubt.
Really quickly, the Hornets have 2 very early second-round picks that I could very much see them packaging together to go up into the late first round to find a player that they fall in love with. A couple of those players played in the Elite Eight over the weekend. Jonai Broom of Auburn and LeBaron Phelan. I'm sorry if I haven't done my name work yet. From Alabama. Either of those guys pique your interest in the action that you watched over the weekend?
Well, the Alabama guys, they run such a fun style of offense anyway, even though it didn't really work against Duke, which Duke has the NBA prototypical size, more so than any other team in college basketball. Auburn is big as well. Florida has some size too, but Duke just all across the board. They're long, they're tough, and they're really tall. So I can't help but gravitate more towards Duke here, Doug. And the guy that I've been really impressed by, more so the last month of the season, it's been Con Knipple. It definitely Con. And you're seeing what he's doing. You're seeing what he's doing.
There's so many name opportunities. I hope the Hornets don't fall. But if they do, you won't see me. If they fall like a couple of spots, you won't see me be devastated, because the name opportunities for this show, for Eric Collins with Con Knipple, are just, we haven't even tapped the surface of what we could do with Con Knipple.
I actually hope we never realize that potential, because we get the number 1 overall pick, but it would be hilarious if it did happen. But no, his handle is tight in pick and roll offense. You see him just really pressure the defense into making the right decision, and he gets deep into the paint, and he's a really good facilitator. His playmaking has been good, and I trust his handle. I mean, he's not his stationary handles. He's not crossing you up. He just gets to where he wants to go and then rises up for the shot because he has some size, and his shooting is tremendous. That's the number 1 thing people celebrate with him. But I really like his game. I've started to come around a little bit more on Malawatch. There's some stuff. I think he moves maybe a little better than I was giving him credit for. I don't love it, but just there's some stuff there to like as the season goes on. I'm more so with you, but he had a really, really good game against Alabama in this last matchup. I'll say that. So it's the Duke guys, man. Duke guys are good. They're really good. It's why I think, this season has been incredible for them.
I think if Danny Wolf of Michigan, if he doesn't slide too far up, if he is in that 20 to 30 range, then I would like to see the Hornets package those 2 second rounders and something, whatever needed to be attached to that to get up to that 20-30 range and take Danny Wolf. Shooting center, just the Hornets just so desperately need it.
Now he can put the ball on the deck a little bit too. Like Danny Wolf can dribble.
I think he's a guy. He's a riser for me. I'll just give you my very fast takes that I was spewing at Walker pre-show. I think VJ Edgecombe is going to slide. I think Con Knipple, I think Trey Johnson are going to work themselves into top 5 consideration. Those are just my I'm not locked into those takes. Just my very base. Just this is more gut than anything.
Okay, before I curse again, let's end the show. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets.
Let's end this bleeping show.
That'll do it. That'll do it for the week leading show. Into a game where they play Utah. This basketball. Oh my God, this basketball tonight is gonna be an all-timer. That's Doug Branson. Check him out, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also listen to him on Locked On NBA every weekday. Matt Moore-Hayes also helping him out over there. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.